In my last video, I set myself the challenge of building a full carbon gravel bike with most of the parts sourced from AliExpress for under 1,000 British pounds. And this is the bike. But the real question is it actually any good? And is it something I recommend you go and do yourself? Today we're going to find out. I'm going to take you through my first impressions with the build, how I've fixed a few of the little quirks, and take it out for its first proper test ride, along with, of course, the weigh-in. If you remember from part one, I had a few issues with the front brake and how the frame wasn't quite compatible with the weird front calipers that L2 makes. It might be quite hard to see, but if you look, the frame has a bit of a lip here where the top of the front caliper is. That meant any of the offset adapters for a 160mm rotor wouldn't actually work. So what I've had to do to rectify this is switch to a 140, which has solved the problem. However, only having a 140 on the front isn't ideal. I do have a plan for how I'm going to get a 160 on the front. You'll have to stick around to the end when I'll tell you what I'm going to do next with that front brake. Especially with this L2 group set, weird brake mounts aside, it's been absolutely brilliant. I've actually quite enjoyed having the integrated handlebars. At least after the faff of getting them set up, they are working really well. No issues with any of the cables jamming in the headset. You know, the shifting is absolutely fine. And yeah, it's actually really comfortable with a subtle flare on the drops. I've gone for a very long reach on this build, but they do make them in an absolutely huge variety of sizes. Now, one of the slight concern many of you may have is with this wheel set. Now, these Ryet wheels are so cheap. I think at the minute I saw them even available for £180. I think I paid about 200 for these, but I've not had any problems. And I've taken this bike out quite a few times now on some pretty rough terrain. And yeah, they've not missed a beat. However, another YouTuber who's tried these, Trace Velo, did make a video recently where he saw someone had left a review of them catastrophically failing, which is a bit nerve-wracking. But to be honest with you, I'm sure if you look at any wheel brand, there will be the odd QC error. I guess with these cheap AliExpress wheels though, you're just less likely to get that sort of after-sales support. If your wheels do fail, you're probably just out of luck there. But yeah, I've been really impressed with them. They are though hookless wheels, and I think that's probably how they managed to get the price point so low. As we all know that really the only benefit of hookless is it's cheaper to manufacture, which if you're trying to massively undercut the market, I don't blame them for doing. Now, on a gravel bike, it's nowhere near as big of a problem as you will be running big tyres with pretty low pressures. The only time hookless becomes an issue is when you're running, well, more than about 70 PSI and hit a really bad pothole. So, you know, for heavy riders wanting to ride skinny tyres, it's not going to work. But for a fairly light rider like myself, running 47mm tyres on chunky gravel terrain where I'm only running 20 PSI, it's really not a problem. This rear mech, while weighing quite a lot, I've also found to be really good and robust. And the clutch, yeah, is great. I've not had any chain drops yet. You know, it's got a pretty tight clutch on it. Keeps that chain nice and tight. Something I have noticed about this rear mech, and I think they've been a bit scared off by SRAM, is there is in fact a little hole here, which is exactly the position where the cage lock on a SRAM sort of clutched gravel rear mech would be, which enables you for when you're taking your wheel out to lock the cage open and holds the cage out. And now I'm pretty certain SRAM has a patent for that because no Shimano mechs seem to have that system. And you know, it's really useful for when you've got these tight clutches. It can be a bit difficult getting your wheel out. I wonder if they were gonna put one in and they've been advised like, oh, maybe for selling to the Western market, stay away from it because you know you're gonna get lawyers banging down your door. Or they might be intending for you just to jam like an Allen key or something in it. I imagine you probably could, but I'm not too fussed to be honest with you. It's just quite a funny little thing because, you know, a lot of these Chinese companies definitely take liberties when it comes to patent infringement and stuff. Of course, me just standing here in my garage talking about the specs of this bike and, you know, how good it looks isn't really a sign of if it's any good as a gravel bike. And the only way to properly test it is to get it out on the trail. In order to put it through its paces, I'm going to be taking this bike out to Snowdonia and I'm going to be riding the former Marin Trail, which now has some Welsh name, which, yeah, I'm not sure I can pronounce. Gwydir Mawr, something like that. Who knows? If you're Welsh, let me know in the comments below how to pronounce it. I'm useless with any phonetic stuff, especially when it's not in my own language. It's nothing impossible on a gravel bike, but it definitely falls in that sort of borderline of gravel bike versus mountain bike terrain where I'm not sure what I'd rather. Just before we head out to Snowdonia to test the bike, I've got one more thing to ask of you. On part 1, 90.3% of you were not subscribed. So do me a favour, scroll down and hit that subscribe button so you do not miss any future updates on this bike. It is not the end for this project and I've got plenty of exciting upgrades to throw on it down the line. Now it's time to get out to Snowdonia. Right, I am out here in Snowdonia to give this bike its proper first test. I'm going to be taking it down some red run mountain bike trails to really put it through its paces. We'll have to see if it survives. First impressions though, so good. Way nicer than my other gravel bike to ride. I'm loving the ergonomics of these L2 thumb shifters. Super responsive and snappy. You can either push the top, down the side, if you're in the drops, you can push the thumb lever easily. Or even, it requires so little force on the thumb lever, you can sort of just push it with the side of your hand. Right, first time on gravel. Well, yeah, first descent done, and that was awesome. Really enjoyed it. This bike is really growing on me. You know, the thing that's impressed me the most about this bike is the braking performance. Really, really powerful. Even though I've only got a 140 on the front, I think these might be the best drop bar hydraulic brakes I've got. I mean, this is the sort of terrain I've spec'd this bike for. Fast fire roads, proper racing stuff. But I'm gonna take it on some chunky terrain because I've got to really test it, don't I? And after my time at Dolby Grit, we all know I need more practice on the technical terrain. Just gonna get my heart rate up really high on this hill and then bomb it into a technical track and see if I survive. Man, that was sick. That was awesome. Honestly, these brakes are filling me with so much confidence combined with the 47mm tyres. I'm loving it. I think this is the first time I've ever done a man-made trail centre really, other than I guess during Dolby Grit. Around me in the peaks, we just ride random natural trails. We don't have much in the way of proper purpose-built trail centres. And it's about the right difficulty. You know, it's pushing me at times and not like I'm gonna die. Except that last descent was a little bit steep. But we're all good. This is the one bit of this bike struggling on a bit, the tight technical climbs. And to be honest with you, that's kind of my fault, because I've spec'd this to be a serious gravel racer, not a single track weapon. With a 120mm stem, it's just a little bit unwieldy through the tight corners, but still good fun out here. Whoa. Just really tight hairpins aren't its cup of tea. Of course, I had to be let down by my bike handling right at the end of the last bit of trail. Now we're back home, it's time to throw the bike on the scales. In what I like to call showroom spec, with no pedals, bottle cages, or any sort of Garmin mount accessories. Basically what you get if you roll the bike out of a showroom. The only difference to the build I'd spec is an SLR boost saddle, which is actually quite a lot heavier than the mixed saddle I spec'd it with. Only because I'm trying out that mixed saddle on a different bike at the minute and I couldn't be bothered to change it. You can probably knock off around 100 grams to get the weight it would be with the mixed saddle. Oh yeah, and final bit of housekeeping, I am running it tubeless with around 60 mil of sealant per wheel. Just zeroed the scales and the bike is clocking in at, make sure it's not touching anything, 8.14 kilos. And you know what, that's a pretty respectable weight and pretty much what most big brand carbon gravel bikes usually weigh in at. And you're definitely not getting an 8.1 kilo gravel bike for £1,000 from a mainstream retailer in the UK. Talking ride feel in a bit more depth then, I have to say it's been absolutely faultless. On that ride off camera, I did a bit of a sort of an uphill effort up a short sort of 4 or 5 minute climb where I must have been pushing well over 350 watts. And there was no issue with any flex in the BB or any flex in that integrated bar. It was absolutely rock solid, and actually the power transfer felt really natural, even with them really wide tyres on. And then as soon as you got onto the off-roading, like just the way the frame set up handled it brilliantly. As I said, the only thing was a 120mm stem is probably not the choice for technical off-roading, and I've got that on there specifically for gravel racing really, which you're basically just riding in a road bike position for. So if you're building it up to do more technical descending, I would definitely opt for a shorter stem. Considering I'm normally a really cautious descender off-road and not really the best technically, the fact it's given me so much confidence bombing down them trails off-road is a massive credit to the bike and you know how much it has inspired the confidence there. I am really impressed with how this build's come out. And I honestly think this is a really good setup, especially with that frame set. Obviously, as I said at the start of the video, the frame set was the real focus of the build and what I wanted to spend the majority of the budget on. With the idea being, you know, if this is your starter gravel bike, you buy a really good frame and then you skimp a little bit on the finishing kit, which you can very easily upgrade down the line. For example, now I know these Senix cranks are pretty bomb-proof and people do really like them, but I'm gonna be down the line swapping these out for a lighter option. And also, I might consider swapping the L2 group set on here for something a little bit more electric. You could definitely get a bit of an upgrade on the wheels as well, even though I've not had any problems with them. But yeah, I'm gonna try and emulate some of them upgrades over the next few months and try and get this bike into like sort of no compromise spec. And this time, I'm gonna up the budget to £2,000 and we'll see what we can do with it. Let me know in the comments below if you've got any part recommendations that I should throw on this bike. I've got loads of stuff in the garage, plus obviously I'll be digging through the weeds of AliExpress to find some excellent bargains to get this fully race spec in time to take it around a gravel race. If you watched my last video, maybe the World Championships? And before you go, I've got an exciting piece of kit, and this is one I think is going to fix my front brake problem. These are some Z-Race 4-piston calipers in a very fetching anodized green colour, and they use a far more standard spacing for their mounts. So yeah, in an upcoming video, I'm going to be throwing these on the gravel bike to see just how they perform. If you enjoyed this video, please do get yourself subscribed. It really helps the channel. And while subscribers don't make a massive difference to the YouTube algorithm anymore, it helps me convince brands to send me exciting parts to test out on my bike for you guys, including these Redshift shock stop parts that are on my other gravel bike that I'll be testing out over the next few weeks. Anyway, until then, I will see you all in the next video.